Hi, I'm Eric Orange with the Reservoir Alliance at Burlington County, and today we're back in Burlington, and we're going to be talking to historian Marissa Bozarth about Margaret Morris. Hey Marissa.
Hi Eric.
So, tell me about Margaret Morris.
So, Margaret Morris was born in 1737 in Maryland, and her father was a doctor and a merchant. And when she was really young, her father, her mom, and several of her older siblings moved to the island of Madeira off the coast of Portugal.
Okay.
In order to try and regain some money that the family had lost in their merchant business due to, ships being lost at sea and things like that. So Margaret's oldest sister was married off to her first cousin. She was only 16 years old, but they were from Philadelphia. So it brought them further up the East Coast. So they ended up in Philadelphia, and Margaret was actually raised by her older sister and her brother-in-law. Never to see her mother again. She did see her father. Then the family was very successful once they got to Madeira. They started a wine business. So if you're familiar with Madeira wine, you hear it a lot. That was them. So they became very, very successful, and they were able to provide for these kids even though they didn't necessarily see them, but they did write letters home and kind of give instructions on how to raise their kids. So Margaret grows up in this Quaker family, marries, and has a couple kids of her own. She has 4 children. And unfortunately for her, when they're very young, her husband dies, leaves her a widow in Philadelphia with 4 young children. So, at the time, there's not much for her to do, right? Women aren't going out and getting a job to help support them. So she has an offer from one of her other sisters, Sarah Dillwyn, who had married a minister named George, and they had lived in Burlington. So they had offered for her to come over to Burlington to live with them, and they would help her with raising the kids. They weren't around very much because he was a minister. They were out preaching and doing a lot of missionary work. So she pretty much had their house to herself with these children, but it gave her a safe place to live. Burlington at that point was fairly quiet in the mid to late 1700s. There wasn't a lot going on here until the Revolution showed up. So she was living there right along the riverbank, right along the Delaware River. Her house would have looked right out over where we're standing. Margaret went on when the Revolution started in 1776 to write a journal. She documented everything that was going on in our area from December of 76 until June of 1777.
And I guess the interesting part of that diary is that she seemed to know quite a bit about what was going on with the troops.
She did. She not only was witness to a lot of it, that was, she was watching boats go up and down the Delaware. There were troops from all sides stationed right in town, so she was watching that, but she was also getting word from other towns in the area. She was receiving letters and correspondence from places like Mount Holly and Fieldsboro, telling her, troops are on the move. This is what's happening in our area. Expect, 1,000 Hessians to show up in Burlington by daylight.
Sounds like she knew more than a widow with 4 kids living on the Delaware waterfront should have known.
Yeah, definitely.
Why don't we go take a look at that diary?
Sure.
So Marissa, we're going to take a look at Margaret's diary. What kind of things did she write about?
So at the beginning of her diary, most of the stuff that she wrote about was pretty mundane. For instance, on December 7th, 1776, she writes, "A letter from my next neighbor's husband at the camp
warned her to be gone in haste. And many people coming into town today brought intelligence that the British Army were advancing towards us."
Okay, so she could certainly get that kind of information from somebody who is trying to escape in front of an enemy army. What else does she say?
Yes, so the next day on December 8th, she says, "Every day begins and ends with the same accounts. And we hear today that the regulars
are in Trenton. Some of our neighbors gone and others going. Makes our little bank look lonesome, but our trust in Providence still firm, and we dare not even talk of removing our family."
Okay, so she's going to stay in Burlington with her children. She has 4 children?
4 kids, yep.
4 kids. She's a widow. She's all by herself. Does anything really good happen? I mean, does it heat up? Are there, is there a battle in Burlington?
Yeah, it really starts to build up once we get to the 10th and the 11th.